All right, welcome to another deep dive. We are tackling something really helpful today. We're talking all about classroom assistant interviews.
Yes.
So if you are thinking about applying for a classroom assistant job,
Hmm.
this is for you. And to help us kind of go, really in depth on this, we're using Indeed.com's article
Yeah.
called Classroom Assistant Interview Questions.
Perfect resource.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, anyone can read an article with interview questions,
Yeah,
really.
for sure.
So what we want to do is really go deeper
Yeah, has
and
to.
kind of get into like, okay, what are they really looking for when they ask these things?
Hmm. Because I think a lot of people, they see those questions and they think, oh, I can just answer this really easily. Like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm a patient person or I'm organized. But it's like, how do you actually show that?
Right, exactly.
So we're going to go beyond just those surface level answers and really dive into what's going to make you stand out.
Yeah, because it's one thing to have the skills on your resume,
Uh-huh.
but how do you show them that you can actually do those things?
Exactly. Because a classroom is not just a calm and collected environment all the time.
No, no, definitely not. So I think that's a great place to start. Like, what are those things that interviewers are really looking for in a classroom assistant?
Okay, so if we're looking at this Indeed article, right,
Okay.
three big things kind of jump out. Communication, prioritization, and then that adaptability that we were talking about right before.
Yeah, and I think all of those are super important in any job, but especially in a classroom setting.
Absolutely. And each one is important for very specific reasons when you're working with students.
Okay, so let's break those down. Let's start with communication, because I
Yeah.
feel like that's important in any job, but especially when you're dealing with kids, right?
Yeah, you're communicating with students of all different ages and learning styles.
Mm.
Trying to explain um, maybe some pretty complicated things in a way that they're going to get. But it's not just about the kids.
Yep.
You're also communicating with the teachers, the parents, maybe even administration. It's a lot of juggling.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's not just about being like a clear speaker. You have to be able to adjust to those different
Yeah,
audiences.
exactly. And kind of reading the room. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what about prioritization?
Oh, boy.
Because I can only imagine, like, a classroom can be chaos sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah. You've got, you're helping one student with a math problem over here. Then another student needs their permission slip signed over there. And, oh, now the teacher needs you to, like, set up the next activity.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to prioritize
Yeah.
and know, okay, what needs to happen right now, what can maybe wait a few minutes, that's huge.
It's almost like you're the master of controlled chaos.
You got it. It's a very specific skill set.
Yeah. Okay, and then there's adaptability, which, I think we've kind of touched on. But what does that look like specifically in a classroom?
Well, you had to think about every student is different. They learn in different ways. So some are, they're visual learners. Others need to like do something like have a hands-on activity. Some kids, they thrive in groups, and other kids need some quiet time just to focus.
Yeah.
So a really great classroom assistant can kind of recognize that. Like, okay, this kid learns this way,
Yeah.
so I'm going to adjust how I'm teaching them or working with them.
Oh, so it's almost like having this whole toolbox of like teaching strategies or like ways to connect with kids
Hmm.
and knowing when to pull out each tool.
Yeah, and sometimes, you might have to improvise. You got to come up with something new on the spot.
Oh, I bet.
So, yeah, adaptability. I think that's why it's so sought after in this field.
Okay, so we've got this foundation of what the interviewers are really looking for, right?
Right.
So let's actually dive into some of those common questions from the Indeed.com article. And I have to ask about this one because I feel like everyone dreads this one. How would you handle a disruptive student?
Oh, yeah, it's a classic. It's in like every interview guide, right?
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting about this question is that it's not really about discipline. Like, that's not what they're getting at.
Oh.
What they want to see is, can you think on your feet? Can you assess the situation?
Okay.
Can you kind of like be the detective in the classroom?
Yeah.
Figure out like what's the root cause
Yeah.
of this disruption?
Well, that's a lot deeper than I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking like send them to timeout, but
Yeah, no, think about it. Like, is the student bored? Are they frustrated? Are they just like wanting attention? Maybe they didn't understand the instructions or something.
oh, okay.
So your answer should kind of show that you can like identify that underlying issue and then tailor your response to that.
Okay, so instead of I'd send them to timeout, it's more about I'd try to figure out what's really going on with that student. Yeah.
Exactly. Show that you can assess the situation. You're not just jumping to,
Right.
like a knee-jerk reaction.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. All right, what about another one that I think is pretty common? What inspired you to be a classroom assistant?
Ah, this is where you can really let that passion shine through. This is your chance to tell a story, to share a specific experience, something that really ignited that, like love of working with kids and helping them learn.
Okay.
Maybe a teacher inspired you, or you had a really rewarding experience volunteering at a summer camp or something like that.
It's like a story really makes you stand out, right?
Oh, totally. Interviewers, I mean, they hear a lot of kind of generic answers, so a
Yeah.
well-told story with like real emotion, that's going to make a much bigger impact.
Okay, that makes sense. One last question before we move on, and this one really gets to, I think, the heart of what it means to be adaptable in the classroom. Can you share an example of a time when you had to adjust your teaching style to help a student learn?
Oh, this is a good one. Here's where you can really show that you understand that, like, okay, one size doesn't fit all in education. And again, be specific. Think about a student that you've worked with who had like a unique learning style, or maybe they were facing some kind of challenge.
Yeah.
How did you adapt your approach to help them succeed?
So like I could talk about like how I used visual aids for a student who is a visual learner, or how I broke down a concept into smaller steps for someone who was struggling.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be like a formal teaching experience. Maybe you helped a younger sibling with their homework, or you volunteered at an after-school program or something.
Okay.
The point is to show that you can tailor your approach to that individual's needs.
Yeah, so it's about like recognizing that everyone learns differently and being able to adjust to that.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay, so
Yeah.
so we've kind of tackled some of these like big like overarching interview questions,
Mhm.
but the Indeed.com article also has some like really practical info about like the job itself,
Yeah, absolutely.
like what
Yeah.
you actually do on a day-to-day basis.
For sure. Because, I mean, it's great to ace that interview,
Right.
but you also want to make sure that this is the right fit for you. You
Yeah.
actually want to do this job.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure.
So, they list out typical duties, things like prepping materials, helping with classroom organization, giving that individual support to students, and of course, working closely with the teacher.
Okay. Yeah. So like how do I connect those duties back to my skills in the interview? Because it feels kind of awkward to just like rattle off the job description back to them.
Yeah, you don't want to just like parrot it back.
Right.
But think of it this way, like those duties, that's your chance to showcase your strengths.
Oh, okay.
So let's say they ask about typical duties.
Yeah.
You could say something like, well, I'm really organized and I'm detail oriented, so I'm great at like prepping materials and keeping things running smoothly. And I also really love working one-on-one with students to like help them really grasp new concepts. So you're
Mhm.
kind of weaving in
Yeah.
your skills into that conversation about the job itself.
So I'm basically just like showing them how like my skills would apply to those specific duties.
Exactly, you got it.
Yeah.
And if you have any relevant experience, like let's say you volunteered in a classroom before, or you tutored younger students or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, those are like gold mines for examples.
Okay.
You could say something like, in my previous role as a tutor, I learned to adapt my teaching style to different learners, which I know will be really valuable in this role,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So it's like showing them that you can walk the walk.
Yes,
Show, don't tell.
not just talk the talk, yeah. Okay, so the article also mentions qualifications, and I was kind of surprised to see that sometimes a high school diploma is all that's required. Yeah, that's true for some entry-level positions.
Yeah.
But even if you don't have like a formal education degree, highlighting any relevant experience is key.
Yeah.
So, think about, have you done any volunteer work, any extracurricular activities, even just like personal experiences like babysitting or, helping younger siblings with their schoolwork,
Yeah.
anything like that.
So it's like emphasizing those transferable skills.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
patience, communication, problem solving, even if you didn't learn those in like a traditional classroom setting.
Exactly. Because, I mean, really, every experience, even if it seems unrelated at first glance, can teach you valuable skills that are relevant to working with children.
Okay, that's a good point. I think this is really helping me see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
It's not just about checking boxes on a resume. It's about like understanding like what a classroom assistant really does and how my like skills and experiences fit into that role.
Exactly. Yeah. We're kind of giving you that like insider perspective.
Yeah.
So you can go in that interview feeling like confident and prepared.
Okay, that's awesome. But I have to admit, like, even with all this great info, interviews can still be, like, nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any, like, final tips for, like, calming those, like, pre-interview jitters?
Sure, yeah. One thing that I always try to remember is that, the interviewers are just as invested in finding the right fit as you are.
Oh, okay.
They want you to succeed. So just like take a deep breath,
Yeah.
be yourself, let your passion for education really shine through.
Oh, that's such good advice because it's easy to forget that, like, interviewers are people too.
Yeah.
And, like, they want to find someone who's genuinely, like, excited about this role.
Absolutely. And remember, preparation is key to confidence.
Yeah.
So reflect on those experiences, practice those answers, and just like visualize yourself like rocking that interview.
Yeah, like, you got this.
You got this.
Okay, so we've covered, like, the skills, the questions, the duties, even, like, some tips for calming those nerves.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, like, what's the one thing that you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway is this. Being a classroom assistant, it's about so much more than just supervising kids. It's about nurturing that curiosity, supporting their learning, and playing a role in their development. So you can convey that passion, that commitment. You'll be well on your way to landing that dream job.
I love that. It's about making a real difference in those kids' lives.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that, our listener can really connect with, even if they don't have tons of formal experience.
Absolutely.
Because we've all had those moments, right, where we've helped someone learn something new.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of brings me to, like, a final, like, thought-provoking question for our listener. Like, think about a time when you had to explain something kind of complex to someone, like maybe a technical concept or a recipe or anything. Like, how did you approach it? Did you use analogies? Did you break it down into smaller steps? Like, how did you make sure that they understood?
Exactly. And think about, like, why did you choose that approach?
Yeah.
What was it about that person or that situation that, like, made you think, okay, this is going to be the best way to get this point across?
Oh, yeah. I do that all the time with my grandma and technology. Like, I have to get really creative to make things click for her.
Yeah, it's amazing how those everyday experiences, they can actually reveal those, like, natural teaching instincts.
Totally.
And by, like, reflecting on how we adapt our communication style in all these different situations, we're basically prepping for those interview questions without even realizing it.
It's like a secret weapon almost.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to, like, that core idea of adaptability, right? Like, meeting people where they are and adjusting your approach to help them learn and grow.
Precisely. So as you're getting ready for that interview, remember, you have a wealth of experience to draw from, even if it doesn't come from a, traditional classroom setting. Think about those times you've helped someone learn, how you've adapted your communication style, how you've tackled challenges with, like, patience and creativity.
Yeah.
Because those are the experiences that are going to make you stand out, that are going to show those interviewers that you're not just qualified on paper, but you genuinely have what it takes to be an amazing classroom assistant.
And remember, like, your enthusiasm is contagious.
Oh, yeah.
So let your passion for education shine through.
Yeah.
And you'll leave a lasting impression.
For sure.
We are so glad you joined us for this deep dive into the world of classroom assistants. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel empowered to ace that interview.
Absolutely. And we'd love to hear from you. Like, what resonated with you most from this deep dive? What questions or aha moments came up for you?
Feel free to share your thoughts and any follow-up questions you have. Good luck with your interview prep, and remember, you got this.
We got this.
So we've talked about some of those big picture interview questions.
Yeah.
But the Indeed.com article also has some really practical info about the job itself, right? Like what a classroom assistant actually does.
Absolutely.
Day to day.
Yeah, because it's one thing to ace that interview, but you want to make sure that you actually want this job,
Right.
that it's a good fit.
Right.
So they list out typical duties, things like prepping materials, helping with classroom organization, providing that individual support to students, and then, of course, working closely with the teacher.
Okay, so how do I connect those duties back to my skills in the interview? Because it feels kind of awkward to, like, just rattle off the job description back at them.
Yeah, you don't want to just repeat the job description. Think about it this way, like those duties, that's your chance to really showcase your strengths.
Okay.
So, let's say they ask about typical duties. You could say something like, well, I'm really organized and detail-oriented, so I'm really good at prepping materials and keeping things running smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love working one-on-one with students to help them really grasp new concepts. So you're kind of like
Yeah, that makes sense.
weaving it in.
It's almost like I'm showing them how my skills would apply to those specific duties.
Exactly. And if you have any relevant experience, you know, let's say you volunteered in a classroom or tutored younger students, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like goldie mines, for example.
Okay.
You know, so you can say something like, oh, in my previous role as a tutor, I really learned to adapt my teaching style to different learners, which I know will be valuable in this role.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so it's like showing them you can walk the walk.
Yes, show, don't tell.
Not just talk the talk. Okay, so the article also mentions qualifications. And I was a little surprised to see that sometimes a high school diploma is all that's required.
Yeah, for some entry-level positions, that's true.
Okay.
But even if you don't have a formal education degree,
Yeah.
highlighting any relevant experience is key.
Okay.
So think about, volunteer work, any extracurricular activities you've done, even just personal experiences, like have you babysat or
Yeah.
helped younger siblings with their schoolwork,
Okay, yeah.
anything like that.
So it's about emphasizing those transferable skills,
Yes, exactly.
like patience, communication, problem solving, even if I didn't learn them in a traditional classroom.
Exactly, because every experience, even if it seems kind of unrelated at first, can teach you really valuable skills
That's true.
that are relevant to working with children.
Yeah, I think this is really helping me see the bigger picture.
Yeah,
It's not just about checking boxes on a resume. It's about understanding what a classroom assistant really does
absolutely.
and how my skills and experiences fit into that.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, give you that,
Yeah.
insider's perspective.
Okay, that's awesome. But I have to admit, even with all this great info, interviews can still be
Nerve-wracking.
yeah, super nerve-wracking.
Oh, for sure.
So do you have any final tips for calming those pre-interview jitters?
Yeah. One thing that always helps me is to remember that the interviewers, they are just as invested in finding the right fit as you are.
Oh, okay.
They want you to succeed. They're not trying to, trip you up or anything.
Yeah.
So just take a deep breath. Be yourself
Yeah.
and let your passion for education really shine through.
That's such good advice because it's easy to forget that interviewers are people too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they want to find someone who's genuinely excited about this role.
Yeah, for sure. And remember, preparation is key to confidence.
Okay.
So reflect on those experiences, practice those answers, and just visualize yourself rocking that interview.
Yeah, you got this.
You got this.
Okay, so we've covered the skills, the questions, the duties, even some tips for calming those nerves.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing that you want our listener to walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway is being a classroom assistant. It's about so much more than just supervising kids.
Okay. Yeah.
It's about nurturing that curiosity, supporting their learning, and really playing a role in their development. So if you can convey that passion, that commitment, you'll be well on your way to landing that dream job.
Yeah, it's about making a real difference in their lives.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that, our listener can really connect with, even if they don't have tons of formal experience.
For sure.
Because we've all had those moments, right?
Yeah.
Where we've helped someone learn something new.
Absolutely. It
And
happens all the time.
And that kind of brings me to a final thought-provoking question for a listener to consider.
Okay.
Think about a time when you had to explain something kind of complex to someone, maybe a technical concept or a recipe, anything really. How did you approach it? Did you use analogies, break it down into smaller steps? How did you make sure that they really understood what you were trying to get across?
And think about why you chose that approach.
Yeah.
What was it about that person or that situation
Yeah.
that made you think, okay, this is the best way to get this point across?
Oh, yeah. I do that all the time with my grandma on technology.
Uh-huh.
I have to get super creative to make things click for her.
It's amazing how those everyday experiences can actually reveal our natural teaching instincts that we have.
Totally.
Yeah. And by reflecting on how we adapt our communication style in all these different situations,
Yeah.
we're basically prepping for these interview questions without even realizing it.
It's like a secret weapon.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that core idea of adaptability, right?
Yes.
Meeting people where they are, adjusting your approach to help them learn and grow.
Exactly. So as you're, getting ready for that interview,
Mhm.
just remember you have a wealth of experience to draw from,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't come from a traditional classroom setting. Think about those times you've helped someone learn, how you've adapted your communication style, how you've, tackled challenges with patience and creativity.
Hmm.
Because those are the experiences that are going to make you stand out. Those are going to show those interviewers that you're not just qualified on paper, but you genuinely have what it takes to be an amazing classroom assistant.
And remember, your enthusiasm is contagious.
Oh, yeah.
Let your passion for education shine through,
Yeah,
and you'll leave a lasting impression.
for sure.
We are so glad you joined us for this deep dive into the world of classroom assistants. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel empowered to ace that interview.
Absolutely. And we'd love to hear from you. Like, what resonated with you most from this deep dive?
Yeah.
What questions or like aha moments came up for you?
Feel free to share your thoughts and any follow-up questions you have. Good luck with your interview prep, and remember, you got
You
this.
got this.